I spoiled myself today. Peeked at another reel. All I feel is shame. I guess it's not ideal. Watched it through a porthole. Could stop me with a swing. Tried so hard to look away, but I remember everything. What have I become? Already know the end. Everything I know spoiled away at the end. Damn, I spoiled it all. My eyes did I avert. Always let me down. Spoilers make it hurt. The following podcast contains spoilers for Walk the Line. You have been warned.
Hey, Mama, you gotta hear this Johnny Cash, man. He sounds something crazy. He's a real chucklehead, Mama. Hey there. Sorry. It's actually me. I lied. I fooled you. That was called acting. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glen Button, along with your host, Miguel, my sexy Johnny Cash Gusto.
That's me. Hi, everybody. My name is Mikey. He's at home.
There's a double Elvis happening.
Double Elvis, Johnny Cash. I'm not good at impressions. We know this. Ew.
Oh.
How you doing, Glenn?
I'm not too shabby.
Yeah.
Not much going on this week, actually. It was kind of a dead little ringer.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that many movies, but we already knew that.
Yeah.
I did, however, watch a movie with you. And dear God, was it watchable at times.
It was something. It was indeed a movie.
It was tasty and delicious, and that was all because of the spicy little samosa that is zesty Momoa.
Very
I
zesty
tried to get
Momoa.
that. It was a pretty cool play on words, and I fucked it up.
It's all right.
We watched Fast X.
Yes.
What are you expecting? There's a lot of shit going on, and it was crazy, and it happened.
Yeah. All those things.
And obviously the best part for us, if you had watched the review, was Momoa just going off the rails and doing what he does best, was just acting, I guess. Sometimes he rock climbs, but acting. And he acted fantastically.
Yes, he did.
Meanwhile, the rest of the movie was basically a really horny mechanic's dream of Marvel, which it's getting there. One day.
Yeah.
One day, Dominic Toretto will fight Thanos. And I can't wait for the moment. I'm putting money down.
In an alternate universe, he has already, and I guarantee you everyone's still dead in that universe.
Yeah, technically he has. It's true.
Yeah.
Other than that, of course, I have watched the show Banshee. I just started it up.
Yep.
I told you a little about it. It's a goofy little fun time as far as the plot goes. It stars Anthony Starr, funny enough, because the star. That's really the only reason I am watching it, because I was like, man, I haven't really seen him in anything else, and I heard this was decent, or at least good, and I wanted to check it out for myself. I had nothing about the plot, and I don't want to really give away anything, because I told you should at least watch the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
It takes place in Pennsylvania, and that's...
I'm sold. I'm sold.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's so fucking fast. It's 2 people, residential Pennsylvania peoples. We know what happens in Pennsylvania, and I love what happens in Pennsylvania in this show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't wait for you to see a piece of that. Other than that, I've watched Walk the Line, but I know for a fact you've watched a few at least.
Yes.
I would like to know.
Much less than I normally do. Mm-hmm. You know, don't know what to tell you. It's just less than I normally do.
It just happens sometimes.
It just happened. I watched a total of 4 movies. Really not that much for me. But, you know, it's fine. First one I watched was Fast X, which we have a review for on the YouTubes, as you discussed. And people should check that out. Then I watched a movie with Dylan O'Brien, I believe his name is.
Yeah.
Dylan O'Brien, called Love and Monsters. Legitimately, the only reason this was on my radar at all is the woman who voices the mom in the kids show Bluey is also in this, and I got a little bit of a crush on her a little bit.
Oh, watch out.
Watch out, Caitlin. I might, leave you for an Australian actress who I've never met and will probably never meet.
Who's never even seen a glimpse of a little Miguel Magusto.
No, well, I mean, it's funny. It's just like, I don't know. She's just got a very nice voice. That's really the only place where the crush comes from. She has
nice
a very
voices
nice voice.
Go very far.
Yes. Her name is Melanie Zanetti. But yeah, Love and Monsters with Dylan O'Brien. She's not even in it that much. She does have one of the more beautiful moments in the film. But this was so much better than I expected it to be. I expected just, a dumb, fun action movie, but it actually has a lot of heart, which was surprising.
Oh, I actually saw a clip of this recently.
Yeah, I was surprised. I wouldn't say I was blown away. Yeah. There's a lot of moments like that where there's like heart that in places you wouldn't expect it to be. She has a human role in it, the mom from Bluey, but her main part is she plays the voice of like a robot, and it's like the first conversation that Dylan O'Brien's character has had with anyone in a long time, and it's just very touching, like the conversation they have, and it's just I did not expect that from a movie like this. So yeah, highly suggest Love and Monsters. It's not going to blow anyone away, but it's just really fun and good. So yeah. Then I watched Walk the Line, which we'll get into in just a minute. And then part of my Ingmar Bergman collection, I watched a movie called The Devil's Eye, which is about... I don't know if people know the legend of Don Juan, but he's essentially like this lover guy. But in this film, I don't know much about Don Juan other than that, he's famous for being like a womanizer and a lover and all that. And in this, he's in hell. I don't know if that's part of the normal lore or whatever, but then the devil makes a pact with him to go have a virgin woman cheat on her fiance with him, and then he would like make his sentence less than what it is.
Of course.
Which I'm assuming is eternity, so I don't know how you make eternity less. You dividing by affinity, I don't think you can really do.
I think the term is forever at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a comedy. It's a dark comedy. It's got the typical Ingmar Bergman depressing parts in it, but overall it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. It's not his best work, but yeah, it is what it is. But that's all I saw. I guess we can get into Walk the Line.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
You how you came up with that sound. Steady like a train, sharp like a razor.
We'd play faster if we could.
The taste of love is sweet.
We're all going to hell for the songs we sing.
And what about me, Charlie? Am I going to hell?
No, June, you're beautiful.
Bound by wild desire, I fell into a ring of fire.
Sorry, it just happened.
You should try taking credit for something every once in a while.
Come on, baby.
Baby, 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 baby.
I fell into a burning ring of fire.
Tell me you don't love me.
I don't love you.
Liar.
And the flames went higher.
Mr. Cash, why don't you refrain from performing any tunes that remind the inmates that they're in prison?
Think they forgot?
The ring of fire.
Joaquin Phoenix, Reese Witherspoon.
And what's with the black?
It's like you're going to a funeral.
Maybe I am.
Walk the Line.
A chronicle of country music legend Johnny Cash's life, from his early days on an Arkansas cotton farm to his rise to fame with Sun Records in Memphis, where he recorded alongside Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins. Didn't stutter again.
We're kind of on a roll lately.
We are. Directed by James Mangold, based on the biography and autobiographies by Johnny Cash and Jill Dennis. I'm going to go with Gil Dennis. And the adaptation by James Mangold, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Goodwin, Robert Patrick, Dallas Roberts. Who else is in it? Waylon Payne is in it. Really not. It really kind of focuses on him for the most part. So there's not a lot of people in it.
Just him and the band that he tours with, or the bands that he tours with. But that's
which I apologize to everyone who is a big Johnny Cash fan. Last week I kept getting him confused. His song "Rings of Fire."
I read into that earlier today. I'm like, oh, he did not say that.
No, I did.
He did.
Yeah. So I got it confused with Jerry Lee Lewis, who he toured with. Great Balls of Fire. So I'm going to count that as a win for me. Accidentally getting the song of someone that he toured with. No, but I remember when it came out in theaters, everyone was singing Great Balls of Fire as well as Ring of Fire. Because, teenagers, Ring of Fire, Balls of Fire. Easy connection right there.
Same thing.
Same thing. Yep. So that's where my confusion comes from. I'm not a big Johnny Cash fan, but this was on my list because I have wanted to see it. I really enjoy Joaquin Phoenix's work. And lately, James Mangold's work. He's been a great director for a while now. So this was on my to-watch list, and I figured I'd put it on my possible KFR list, and Glenn happened to pick it.
I am the guy who picked it. I'm so good.
Yes, but Glenn, you had seen this before, if I'm not mistaken.
I have.
What were your thoughts the first time you saw it, and did they differ this time around?
Well... let's go ahead and run down Glennery Lane. I last saw this movie 15 years ago.
I'm old.
A little 2005 boy wouldn't remember much.
Was he scantily clad though?
So, well, as Glenn is, he always has scantily clad running around.
Yes.
So I'm gonna paint a little picture here as far as this goes. My introduction to Johnny Cash, strap on everybody, was Tony Hawk Underground 2.
Interesting. I don't think of Johnny Cash when I think of Tony Hawk.
Yeah, he had Ring of Fire on they had Ring of Fire on that soundtrack. So that was my introduction to Johnny Cash. Obviously had no idea this movie at all was the same guy who had that song coming out of his mouth. I want to look out when that came out. Tony Hawk Underground 2 came out in 2004. That was just a year before this came out.
So
and a year after he died.
To see this. Yeah.
I had no idea Johnny Cash sang Ring of Fire until fun little moment in the movie when he starts singing Ring of Fire, and I'm like, holy shit!
Tony Hawk!
I skated virtually to that song. That's
crazy.
Christ
Air. Do a Christ Air.
So, as far as the movie went back then, I thought it was great. I wasn't one for like a kind of what's the style of this biography pics or biopics. So I had no idea back then. I thought it was just a good movie. I just recently knew about Joaquin because was this after Signs? I think it was after Signs.
It was 2003. I want to say.
So this was my second big break. Going from Signs, I'm like, that's that guy who swung that bat at a fucking alien that scared me earlier. This is crazy. This is me realizing the world works and people get paid to be in different things.
Yeah.
My 15-year-old Glenn was fucking wild. He had no idea what was going on.
He was stupid.
But I thought at the time, first time going around, that this was good. It was on one of those. I'm pretty sure it was on HBO. So my family had the premium channels. Like I've actually stated a lot the last couple of weeks. So we've been watching a lot of movies that I had seen on the premium channels back then. Yeah. So this was one of the ones my mom kind of had on besides like any of the other movies that we just talked about recently. So I always got the glimpse of it, and I always watched it when it was on. So back then, I thought it was good, but I thought it was longer than this too, because it felt longer. Like, it felt like there was more story. And then rewatching it today, like, it felt like it got shorter somehow. Mm-hmm. Like a chunk after when June and Johnny actually do kind of finally saddle the hitch of marriage. I felt like there was more there, but it was kind of just pretty quick. It's like, boom, that thing we were waiting for this whole movie. So time was a construct for me back then too. This whole thing's put me on a goddamn warp. Anyway, Mike, how'd you feel about it when you first saw it?
Well, no, this is my first time seeing it.
Totally?
Totally, completely. I mean, I had seen parts doing theater walks and whatnot when it came out. But, you know, I never having been a fan of Johnny Cash, I never really cared to see this movie. Not that I was against it, just not something that ever came up. And so I really honestly feel like had I seen it when it first came out, I would have liked it more. Because, you know, in a post-2017 era where, you know, people are more focused on men being overly persistent to the point where it becomes harassment. Yeah. All of his quote-unquote romantic gestures really felt like harassment towards the end. To the point where when she finally does say yes, it's just like, really? You literally just made it very clear 5 minutes ago that you were not ever going to marry him. And then you change your mind.
Yeah, but she was put on the spot in front of a big crowd. What do you... Come on now.
You should never do that. To any young man listening, unless you had previously discussed it with your partner, never propose in front of a large group of people. Don't propose in front of anyone unless you've discussed it and that's what your partner wants.
You're thinking in terms of the turn of the millennium ideals. This is the 1960s. You got to chill. Well, that's
what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure it's just the movie. Yeah. And I really hope it is. And obviously that him and June were in love. But if it were as persistent and annoying and harassment as this movie portrays, I feel bad for June. Because maybe she got some Stockholm syndrome. It's not a good look for Johnny Cash is what I'm trying to say. Not that it makes him look like an inherently bad person. Because not very few people are just like all bad completely. Most people have, even good people have some bad people have some good. It's just a fact. It's not everything's black and white. It's very gray actually. So this movie does not paint him in a good light. Probably in 2005 it was a good light, but in this time it's not. So it was just kind of annoying and how much he was simping over her. Where it was just kind of like, you know, you put horror music under it, it becomes a horror movie.
Just like Seinfeld.
Exactly. But the difference is Seinfeld's a comedy. This isn't. This is not supposed to be funny in the least. So it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. There were parts that I really, really liked for the most part. The first hour I loved. It was really the last hour, 15, that I was just like, okay, this is starting to get repetitive and annoying and creepy and all that. But anytime he had interactions with his first wife, Vivian, everything came to a screeching halt. So the pacing was really good when she wasn't around. And maybe that was on purpose, but it didn't feel like it was on purpose. Yeah. Where it just kind of like stuck out. And I'm just getting all the negative things out of the way because I do want to focus on some positives. I know it right now. It sounds like I didn't enjoy this movie. I did relatively enjoy this movie, just not as much as I wanted to. So it was just kind of like weird tonally. And pacing wise, and then also, you know, felt like he was harassing her. Again, it's hard to put a love story that spans like 10, 15 years into a 2.5 hour movie. So I understand to an extent, but I feel like they could have done a better job. Elvis looks like a chucklehead.
It's funny. I had no fucking idea it was Elvis until the captions were like Elvis singing. I was like, huh?
Yeah, it really doesn't look too much like Elvis. I mean, not that it has to. It probably would have been distracting if he looked too much like Elvis.
Yeah. It was early Elvis.
Yeah.
But
and then
that's like one real quick thing I want to say about
Sure.
that is that even in like the new Elvis movie, I don't remember anything about Johnny at all, or like Mr. Cash at all in that movie. Was there?
no, no, there wasn't. Maybe there was like a line mentioning him,
Yeah.
but it was not focused on too much, if at all.
I liked the little cameo that, although it didn't look too much like Elvis, I liked the little cameo of just him being like, "Oh, look at this kid on stage, wooing all these women."
I think Elvis tried to focus more on the black musicians that inspired Elvis.
Yeah,
Which is honestly the right thing to do with Elvis specifically.
of course.
So I think, if anything, they probably mentioned him in a single line, but I don't remember it at all. Yeah.
That's all. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're quite all right. But, the performances in this are undoubtedly great. Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon were both nominated for their performances. Reese Witherspoon actually won. So, I knew that there was going to be some good auditions. I loved that they both performed both on their instruments and voices. They performed their own songs. I actually read a trivia that Joaquin Phoenix has a relatively high-pitched voice, and Johnny Cash has a relatively deep baritone voice. So one of the trivia I read is that for the longest time, Joaquin Phoenix couldn't get his voice down to that register. So the band started to learn how to play it like up an octave or up a chord or whatever it is. I'm not musically that great, so I apologize for not knowing the term.
I think you got it right, the voice time.
The voice time. And so they started learning it up an octave, and then he was able to get his voice down to that register, so they had to relearn it at the normal the normal register or octave. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But they both had great performances. I was actually very surprised with Reese Witherspoon. Not that she's a bad actress, it's just I've never seen her in something where she goes this in depth into character. At least not for a while. So I really enjoyed the performances. I thought the writing was great. It's really the only problem I have with it is the love aspect of it. I kind of wish it focused maybe more on his brother, if anything.
Yeah.
I think that was the more interesting story, personally. But that's, again, just me, and everyone knows who listens to this podcast how I feel about romance in the majority of films.
I think the part with the brother went a relatively good pace for what the movie was doing. I think if the movie added another 10 or 15 minutes to maybe like the middle part when it does feel like he's kind of just pestering her a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like it would just add more than just kind of what it felt like. I think that would have sealed the deal a little bit more perfectly for my interest, at least. I thought the movie was shorter than it needed to be, honestly.
Yeah.
I definitely would have loved 20 minutes easy. Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah. I agree with you there. Definitely got me to appreciate his music more. I feel like they did a good job at showing the hits and also but without making it too like jukeboxy, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what for me, what I love about this movie, and you know me when it comes to like the musicians like biopics and shit. This felt natural. Like there's only one part where he did the Folsom Prison, like he was like kind of writing it while he was in the Air Force, like that. It felt a little there, like it was like, oh, you're trying to do that thing where these people are just like making up the song, like, oh, I just came up with this song. But it showed he wrote it basically the whole time he was in the Air Force. So when he finally got out, he didn't just break out and become this star.
Yeah.
What I hate about like musical biopics is like they just fucking come up with the song, and it just feels like, sure, in some instances that's probably what happened. But like it always just feels like in most movies it's like boom, and then boom, they're big, and then they start going on tours and shit like that. This felt natural, where the only one he was coming up with the song really was that Folsom Prison song. Yeah. And then everything progressed. Like they didn't go, oh, we got a big hit, and then they went on tour. Everything was sung on tour. Like they had already planned it out. They didn't show the process or anything. That's what I loved about it the most.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just like fucking cheese wheeled in to our fucking plates.
Yeah.
It was just already learned and given to us straight away, performing it naturally. I wish way more movies were like that, and sadly they just aren't.
Yeah.
It was a huge problem that I had with the Queen movie,
Bohemian Rhapsody.
And I mean, for a decent part, I wouldn't raise. Elvis was pretty good for it too, but I don't know. The fucking Bohemian Rhapsody. It was one of those top tier ones where they just came up with the music.
Bohemian Rhapsody, and I apologize to anyone who likes it, it's just not a good movie.
Yeah. Rami Malek's great, but
and
a lot of the other cast is too. But
he's great, but he also didn't deserve the Oscar.
No.
And I think that's like, obviously the Oscars are very political, and it's more about who people schmooze and all that. But like, Rami Malek didn't really deserve the Oscar. Love Rami Malek. I'm not knocking him at all, but there are so many better performances. I think, it was just kind of went to show that there's more about politicizing the award at that point. But another thing, to go into the whole musical biopic or whatever you want to call it, it's kind of, and I know this is just kind of how their lives were. It's kind of annoying how formulaic all these famous rock stars' lives are. Where it's just like, oh, they had a rough childhood, then they become famous, and they get addicted to drugs, and then the person they love won't be with them, and then they get off drugs. The person they love helps them off drugs, and they get into the person that they love, and
it's just kind of it's crazy how that's every musician's summarized life basically.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it just makes them all look kind of boring.
Yeah.
Where everyone's just like, everyone romanticizes the rock style life, and it's just like, it's really just kind of boring if you break it down like that. If you look at all the movies where it's just like they struggle with love and drugs and all that, it's like, that's it's boring. There's always the scene where they're like sweating in bed, like coming down off of a high and trying to kick the drug and all that, and it's not interesting to me. And then they get arrested, of course. That's always something that happens as well.
Yeah.
So once the drugs became part of the story, like, this pacing came to a screeching halt for me. Again, not trying to focus on the negatives. I was more interested in the family dynamic. But also it would have been better if it seemed like he was trying to actually stay with Vivian. I feel like that would be more interesting. It might not be more truthful to his character or to Johnny Cash's life or whatever, but it'd be more interesting if he was trying to stay with Vivian and she got jealous and all that, and kind of just raveled from there. But it was so obvious from the get-go that he wanted to be with June over Vivian that it just made it not interesting at all. It's a shame, because it's great performances and from everyone, including Jennifer Goodwin, who plays Vivian.
I think the worst part about it is when the times that he's back home with Vivian, it definitely slows down pace a bit.
Yeah, and
that makes sense, and that's fine, because when his life on the road, it's a lot more fast paced. There's a lot more going on. It's more fun for him. When he gets back home, it's kind of a drag. He's asleep. He's exhausted from the touring. But I feel like the one thing is that I feel like he wouldn't come home and then just be obsessing over June the whole time.
Yeah, he tried to hide it a little bit better.
Again, it probably happened, but he was very just like hanging pictures up of June and shit like that. And just like, oh, well, that's, I guess, but what? And he's just always showing off June to the family and stuff like that instead of like the other way around. Again, it might have happened, so who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely felt like, and you really don't, in my opinion, you don't support either side. Like, I don't really support Vivian since like day one, even when they weren't even doing anything.
Well,
she was just like super dickheaded-ish to June. And then obviously
she
the
was
other
also,
way around. But
yeah, she was also pretty supportive of Johnny before he became famous. But like, it's like once he became famous, it just wasn't enough for her.
Yeah.
Like the end game wasn't what she wanted. And I mean, that's very real, where people think they want something and when they have it, they realize they don't want it.
Yeah.
But it just felt more like she was whining than anything.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I support your dream. It's great. My dad's got a job back home. Oh, you finally did get the dream. Hell yeah. Let's do it. You know, fuck your dream.
Yeah, why aren't you home
your
more?
Dream.
I knew this was going to take you away from me for a long time, but why aren't you home more?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Obviously, you know,
she's right, but wrong in the way she went about it.
Yes.
And then he is
wrong. 100%.
He's wrong, just 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't want to say he's wrong for loving June.
Yeah.
But how he went about it.
Yeah. 100%.
The actual love, like, actually, like, you know,
yeah, flaunting
cheating on
her
Vivian,
in front of
flaunting her
everybody,
about,
you know, everything
it's just,
like that.
it's not fair to Vivian.
Glad they worked out for 35 plus years, but holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I loved, back kind of to the music parts because it was a majority of it.
Yeah.
I loved, especially since they, like you said earlier, they performed all their parts and stuff like that. I just love as far as his music itself goes, I love how simplistic it was. I think they even mentioned this, like, he kind of just finds his tone because he doesn't really have like a spectrum of tone to go off of. He finds it just because it's just there. And same with like instruments, he like his sway, his looks, he just kind of just comes natural without trying, I guess.
Yeah.
Without going extravagant, I guess you could say. Like trying too hard. He just sounds good without trying. And it's one of the things I always liked about his music, especially after watching this 15 years ago, is I did pick up on his music a lot more. Dude's got such a great catalog. It's insane.
Yeah, his style and genre of music's not something I really like. I don't dislike it. It's just not something I actively look out for.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more
I'll
of
tune it on from time to time. I don't go around just jamming unless it's Hurt. Hurt's the only song that I'll put on like constantly
Hurt's
all the
a great
time.
song.
Dude fucking rocked that thing.
Yeah. I actually had a friend who was really mad that Johnny Cash's version of Hurt was more famous than Nine Inch Nails. she was a really big Nine Inch Nails fan.
Yeah.
Probably still is. I mean, she's still alive, so she probably still is a fan of Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
But like, I always like never understood why she was upset. But then I also get really upset when people think "All by Myself" is a Celine Dion song when it's an Eric Carmen song.
Yeah.
So I understand now. So I apologize for being confused as to why you felt that way earlier. Because I feel it now for All by Myself. Which is a weird song to feel it for. No one, legitimately, and I'm not even kidding, that's my favorite song. I'm not even ironically. I legitimately like that song. Totally. Like,
oh, wow.
For as far as like I've never heard any other of his songs, Eric Carmen, but I love that song. And it's one that I sing all the time. It's probably not my favorite song, but it's like my go-to answer because I don't have to pick between like a million Silent Planet songs or a million Fit for a King songs or whatever. So it's just like, oh yeah, All by Myself by Eric Carmen. And it's also just a funny answer. So anyway, off track again. Overall, I thought this was great. Scratch it. Overall, I thought this was okay.
Okay.
Sometimes I just say great when I'm not thinking. But it had enough where it kind of like, I feel like had I seen it or had I watched it in 2005 when it first came out, I probably would have loved it. But it does not hold up the same way, other than performances. The artistry of it's great, but the story itself is lacking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I respect your little thing there.
Well, I respect you.
So, but one thing I want to say before I feel like you're done, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty much done.
One thing I want to... I just saw this. Obviously, this came out in 2005. I'm pretty sure June died in 2003. So I think production didn't even begin yet. Or like she died before production actually started. And then like Johnny Cash approved of Joaquin to play him. And then June approved of Reese playing her. And I guess she had passed somewhere in between that and production starting up. That was a nice little tearjerker that I just read there.
Yeah, it's cool that they both got to approve the people who played them.
And it's really sad that neither of them got to see the final product of this.
Yeah,
and
it is a nice nod to their love story, which rushed or not. I mean, I'm sure it's much more innocent and natural in real life, but in this, it felt shoehorned.
It felt more impactful knowing, not, obviously that they shouldn't have died, but
yeah.
It felt more impactful knowing that this movie was getting made for them.
Yeah.
Or maybe not for them, but because of them. And then they passed away before its release. Or before it's even production, and they didn't even get to see the final product. Yeah. It's like really impactful, just to really think about.
Yeah.
But hopefully, obviously, they definitely most likely did. Their kids got to see it, and that's enough for me to put a little smile on my face, and hopefully they approved.
So the last thing I will say, I'm sure they do approve. The last thing I will say is last week I talked about Johnny Cash making a bird go extinct or near extinct.
Yeah.
So in the year, I think it was 1963, I want to say. I don't know. 1965, he was camping with his nephew in in Los Padres National Forest in California and started a forest fire. That nearly killed him, and but also killed 49 out of 53 at the time near endangered California condors. So they only had 4 left, and now they are critically endangered.
Jeez.
Not directly because of him, but he also did not help the case.
He did not help at all.
So and when he was arrested, he said, "Oh my God, shit! I had it. Oh yeah." He said, "I don't care about your damn yellow buzzards."
Which, like, this isn't what the song "Ring of Fire" is about. I promise. Or "Balls of Fire."
We weren't thinking that until
they flew up in the air and they became great balls of fire.
Jerry Lee Lewis did it.
I blame that Jerry Lee Lewis.
It has nothing to do with this movie. I just thought I would clarify what I talked about last week.
Yeah, so I'll never ever be able to watch this movie without ever thinking of Dewey Cox.
Oh my God! Well, I thought, okay, this is definitely the last thing I'll say.
Walk Hard story.
I thought his brother's death was a lot more graphic because of what's in Dewey Cox.
Yep.
The Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
The wrong kid died.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he says that in this too. But in this, like, obviously it was a critical injury that he died from it. And he fell on a saw blade. That's never a good time. But I think in Dewey Cox, he's like cut in half, and
he's literally cut in half.
And Dewey Cox sees him cut in half and everything. So when he just had like a big bandage on him, I was just like, oh, I was getting that confused with Walk Hard. So not to make light of his brother's death or anything, but just funny.
A separate little review. It's crazy how much Dewey Cox did a beat for beat between like all the thematics of this movie and made it its own movie, but also mocked this so hard.
Yeah. That
it's so hard to watch this because you're thinking about Dewey Cox the whole time.
Yeah.
That movie's so fucking good.
Yeah.
I mean, so is this, but I cannot watch this without sitting there and be like, you don't want any drugs, Dewey. They're bad for you. Well, they can't be that bad.
We definitely have to do. I mean, John C. Reilly is the closest I can do to a celebrity impression, so we'll have to do that once it's on streaming. But anyway, that does it for our review for Walk the Line. That brings us to the judgment. As always, it needs to be a unanimous decision whether or not it goes to the KFR show for the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. This was my movie this week, so I get to go first. I thought this movie was good. I do not think it aged well, though. I'm also not a huge fan of Johnny Cash. I feel like they could have done a better job to not make him look like a creep. I'm pissing off a lot of people now, probably. I just don't think this is one that people need to see unless they're a fan of Johnny Cash. So I'm going to say no for putting it on the shelf.
Oh, well, that just sucks the balls now, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Great Balls of Fire.
Great balls of fire. I was going to say yes. I think it does belong on the shelf. I think performances are fantastic. I feel like it's naturally progressive as far as like the songs go. Doesn't feel like they just came up with the shit on the spot. I think it's a great dedication to June and Johnny, and I think it's just one of the better musical biopics because it's very few and far between how many are actually good and how it just kind of feels, especially lately, kind of feels like just a cash grab. Between biopics and now we're getting a lot of corporation biopics, and those are fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So here we are. I think this is one of the best ones around as of now, still to this day.
Heads or tails?
Tails.
Oh, well, you and fate convinced me to change my answer.
It's well, don't do it because of me.
No, I did it. I wasn't going to do it because of you. I was going to do it if you won a 50-50 guessing thing, which you did. So I agree. Your points made me, decide to put it in fate's hands.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you made very valid points. I still don't think it's the greatest movie.
Yeah.
But I would agree with everything you said about comparing it to other musician biopics. It doesn't feel like a cash grab. Feels more sincere. I just have a big problem with how creepy it feels. But again, that's just me. So yeah, we can put it on the shelf. I'm okay with that. I'm happier with that being on the shelf than Mr. Nobody, which is still on the shelf because you paid me. So.
I do. Chucklehead.
You can't. I'm telling you, it's never going to get old for me.
Shit.
So if I'm ever at a funeral and giving a eulogy, just go Chucklehead and I'll start
Those
laughing.
fucking guys are Chucklehead, man.
So Walk the Line makes it on the KFR shelf. It's because of fate. Fate put it on the shelf. So goes on the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaid. And that brings us to next week's movie. Glenn.
Yes.
What is our assignment? It's your turn to pick.
You made me just flip a coin between 1 and 2. I'm going to make you pick numbers between 1 and 3.
Oh.
You could just skedaddle whatever number comes to your mind the fastest. You do a little randomizer, whatever you choose. All of these selections are on Netflix, so I'll get that right out of the way. And they don't seem to be on any other platforms that I've seen.
Okay. I'm going to go with 3.
Ooh, okay. You chose a lucky number 3. Rango.
Rango!
Don't move.
What?
Don't move.
Not moving.
Shh, not moving. Try to blend in.
What? Blend in? What do you mean?
Blend in.
Huh? But what are you saying?
Too late.
No, it's not too late. I'm blending. I'm a blender. Ah!
Hey, calm down. What are you doing? Tranquilo. Stop moving. Try not to look conspicuous. Oh, here she comes. You better run, Mojito.
You what? I thought you said don't move.
That was before. Now, you run. Here in the Mojave Desert, animals have had millions of years to adapt to the harsh environment. But the lizard? He's going to die.
Rango is an ordinary chameleon who accidentally winds up in the town of Dirt, a lawless outpost in the Wild West in desperate need of a new sheriff. Directed by Gore Verbinski, written by John Logan Gore Verbinski himself and James Ward Burkett, stars Johnny Depp, Isla Fisher, Timothy Olyphant. That's what I said. Timothy. Abigail Breslin, which is this is like almost the second in a row for her, minus the one we just did. Ned Beatty, Alfred Molina, Bill Nighy, Stephen Root. There's fucking tons of talent in there. I'm just gonna stop there.
Gil Birmingham.
I haven't seen this movie since it came out, and I don't remember much of it. The three choices were all on Netflix, and they're all movies that I haven't seen in a while, but I loved. And you chose this one. I loved it for what I can remember, but I don't remember almost shit about it when it came out 12 years ago.
I saw this in theaters 6 times.
God damn.
When I was in college and had nothing better to do.
Yeah.
So, other than studying, of course.
Yeah, of course. Plus, we haven't had a Johnny movie in a while, and I feel like we need to whip out a little Johnny.
Yes.
It sounded dirtier than it meant to be. But hey, here we are.
Yes. So I'm excited to watch this. So, Rango is our assignment for next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, you can check out our website at www.keystonefilmreview.com. On Instagram, we're Keystone_film_review. Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Keystone Film Review. And on Letterboxd, I am Mike, KFR.
And I'm Glen, KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we watch Rango.
Yeah.
Rango. And I'll probably sing for the intro again, and I apologize in advance.
I hope you do.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.